Welcome, 8th graders. I am so pumped to be guiding you through today's explainer. Okay, we're going to jump right in because today we are embarking on a true literary discovery. We're going to master the art of comparing themes in two completely different texts. And look, this isn't just about passing your next English test or, checking off a box on some grading rubric. Being able to compare themes is actually this profound, real-world tool for building deep, lasting wisdom. So by the end of our time together today, you're going to see exactly how putting two texts side by side unlocks a completely new level of understanding. Let's get to it.
But before we even touch the mechanics of literature, I want to anchor our lesson right in Scripture. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5 tells us, "Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance." What a genuinely powerful reminder, right? Looking at truths from a few different angles teaches us the exact kind of intellectual humility that God actually desires for us. When we compare texts, we're actively practicing how to listen carefully, how to discern what's true, and how to add to our learning. So we aren't just becoming better readers today, we're practicing how to be wise.
All right, here is our roadmap for today so you know exactly where we're headed. First up, we'll ask, why compare texts? Second, we'll look at the settings impact. Third, we'll open up your literary toolbox. Fourth, we'll see this comparison in action with a few examples. Fifth, we'll go over your specific assignment. And finally, we'll talk about what it means to be the godly learner.
So, Section 1, why compare two texts? Or, as I like to think of it, how to hold two ideas at once. You know, the ability to hold two totally different ideas in your mind at the exact same time without getting completely confused is an absolute superpower. It's high-level thinking. So why does this comparison stuff actually matter? Well, first off, it literally forces you to evaluate evidence, tone, and structure. You aren't just passively absorbing information anymore, you're actively analyzing how it was built. Second, this is going to massively strengthen your reading, your writing, and, even your speaking skills. Third, just like we talked about with Proverbs, it teaches intellectual humility. And fourth, it beautifully shows how two totally different authors can approach one single truth from completely different angles. And guess what? Both of those angles can completely enrich your understanding. Moving on to Section 2, how setting changes the message, because context shapes meaning.
Okay, the where and the when of a story directly changes its main message. Picture this, a theme about courage. If you're reading a story where courage is set in the middle of a literal war zone, well, it's going to look like physical bravery, right? Survival, protecting fellow soldiers. But what if you read a story about courage that's set in a middle school debate club? Now that courage looks like standing up for a super unpopular opinion, facing down stage fright, or speaking truth to your peers. The theme is exactly the same, courage, but the setting completely shapes the characters and the ultimate message of the story. Context is literally everything.
All right, Section 3, your literary comparison toolbox. This is your essential how-to guide.
Now, higher-level thinking definitely takes practice. I mean, you wouldn't expect to build a whole house without knowing how to use a hammer, right? So don't worry, we're going to break down the actual mechanics of your writing tools. Tool number 1 is the comparative thesis. This is the bedrock of your entire essay. You always want to start with a shared theme, something like community responsibility. Then, you write a single sentence that names each text's specific angle. Here's your golden formula. Ready? While text A portrays community responsibility as sacrifice during a crisis, text B presents it as everyday kindness. Do you see how incredibly clean that is? You've told your reader exactly what the shared theme is, and exactly how the two texts differ. Boom.
Tool number 2 is the T-chart. Listen, before you write a single paragraph, you've got to organize your thoughts. Just draw a simple line right down the middle of your paper. On the left, put text A evidence. On the right, text B evidence. It's so simple, but this method lets you clearly organize your text evidence and your explanations side by side. It keeps your brain totally untangled and makes sure you have equal proof for both sides of your argument before your fingers even hit the keyboard. And tool number 3 is weaving. Once that T-chart is loaded up, it's time to actually write. I want you to walk through this easy 3-step weaving process to build out your paragraph. Step 1, write a sentence about text A and its evidence. Step 2, write a sentence about text B and its evidence. Step 3, write a sentence comparing or contrasting the two. And here is the pro tip. Never, ever forget to explain the so what. You have to tell your reader why this matters and how the setting pushed the theme in a specific direction. Let's move to Section 4. Seeing comparison in action with a few worked examples.
I want to show you exactly what this literary comparison looks like in practice, just so you feel 100% confident doing it yourself. Here's our first example.
we're comparing the theme of forgiveness. Text A is a poem where forgiveness arrives as this really quiet inner release, set totally alone in a quiet room at night. But text B is a short story where forgiveness requires this huge public confession and repair, set at a crowded, really loud family dinner. Notice how the intimate setting of the poem supports internal healing, but the community setting of the story shows forgiveness as a public, outward action. Woven together, they give us a much broader, richer understanding of what forgiveness truly means. The crucial point here is building on that contrast. Let's look at example 2, the theme of truth. So text A is a dystopian novel set in a highly controlled, oppressive society. In this world, telling the truth is a dangerous, literally life-threatening risk. Text B, though, is an editorial set in a free, open civic debate. Here, telling the truth protects citizens and is framed as just basic civic responsibility. The contrast is kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? The oppressive setting versus the civic setting completely shifts what truth requires of a person. All right, let's look at one final example. The theme here is humility. Text A is a fable set in this timeless, imaginary village, and it shows how pride leads to a major fall. Text B is a memoir set in a super-specific, modern classroom, showing how humility grows only after a tough personal failure. The timelessness of the fable delivers a universal warning to everyone, while the specificity of the memoir shows us humility being learned through gritty daily practice. They're delivering the exact same theme of humility, but in entirely different, really beautiful ways. Which brings us to Section 5, your homework assignment. Time to put these skills to work. Now it's your turn. I know for a fact you can do this, so I want you to approach this assignment with total confidence. Here are your 5 steps for success. First, choose 2 texts with a shared theme and write your one-sentence comparative thesis. Use that golden formula we learned. Second, create your T-chart and pull 2 pieces of solid, undeniable evidence for each text. Third, write a 6-sentence paragraph using that A to B comparison weaving method. Fourth, explicitly explain how the setting influences the theme in each text. And fifth, wrap the whole thing up with a powerful so what statement explaining what readers actually gain from seeing both sides. As you tackle this homework, I want to leave you with a quick biblical tip. Reading across different settings and themes is really an invitation to gain wisdom. Always seek understanding. Test ideas carefully. And as you analyze these conflicting messages, really try to practice humility, fairness, and truthfulness. Remember to let your conclusions aim to build others up. Show grace when characters in the stories fail, celebrate their courage when they choose the right path, and use sharp discernment when the messages conflict with one another.
Finally, Section 6, the Godly Learner and the HeroesMart Academy philosophy.
Guys, everything we've done today, the analyzing, the thesis writing, the critical thinking, it all connects to a much bigger picture regarding your education and your faith. The HeroesMart Academy philosophy intertwines biblical morality with education, and here's why. Because education without morality can actually hurt. Think about it. Knowledge and intelligence shouldn't just make you more capable of doing things. They must help you make wise, God-honoring choices. Romans chapter 8, verses 6 and 7 tells us, "The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace." Keeping your mind spiritually minded, yes, even while doing 8th grade literary analysis, is what leads to true life and peace. We want you to pursue immense academic excellence. Absolutely we do. But we want you to do it while keeping your mind centered on God, on truth, on wisdom, and on making righteous choices. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. How will you use your growing intelligence and knowledge today to honor God? Really think about that as you write your essays and analyze these themes. You all have brilliant minds, so use them for His glory. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with me today, 8th graders. Have an absolutely amazing time exploring these texts, and I will see you next time.